Hello students, we are in the first chapter of civics of standard 7. I am Sam sir and I want you to pay attention to this video because it's important for you. First of all, this chapter is about equality in Indian democracy. So we'll be talking mainly about equality and we will also see in the society what inequalities are there. Now, first of all, we know that democracy is a system of government where the people can choose, they can vote and choose their own representatives. And it is a type of government, it is a way of governing the country in which people can express their opinions. You can tell it in the newspaper, you can tell it by media, mass media, or it can be newspaper, television, or it can also be electronic media, but you are free to tell what you're thinking. Then if there are any conflicts means difference of opinions, they can be settled by consensus. That is, by mutual understanding, by mutual discussion, they can be settled. And uh, the citizens can find equality in justice. These are the main features of the government which is democratic in nature. Now, the core principle of democracy is treating everybody equally and upholding the dignity of all the citizens. These are the core areas to the democracy. Now, the meaning of equality means there is equal opportunity and equal treatment for every citizen. The government recognizes the value of every citizen, and for this reason, many laws are made, many provisions are made for all of us. There are three areas of equality. First is political equality, the second is social equality, and third is economic equality. Now, I want to say at the outset, if we were to start with the third point, economic equality, there are rich people in the society and there are poor people. Rich people are very rich, the poor people are really very poor. And there are several factors because of which the society is like this. The skills of people will be different, the education level will be different, the family background will be different, the experience level will be different, the field of experience will be different, the mindset will be different. All these things contribute to the economic well-being of a family and of an individual. So one can find different levels of economic advancements in the society. But first, we will be mainly concentrating on political equality and social equality in this chapter. There is a system known as universal adult franchise in which every adult, that is, every citizen who is of 18 years and more, has got the right to cast their votes and choose a representative. The voting ID card is made by the Election Commission of India, and whenever there is an election, you can choose your representative. The way it is done is the slogan is one man, one vote. One person can give only one vote. And each vote has equal value. Doesn't matter if a person is a billionaire or a pauper, the value of one vote is always equal to one. Now, if we see the social structure, we will find caste inequalities, then gender based inequality is present, and discrimination against differently able people is also present. We can see them in the society. Now, caste system is a classification of society based on profession. This is an age old system. People in the old times used to be doing different professions. Some were doing work with leather, some were and working in the slaughterhouses, some were goldsmiths, some were money lenders, some were doctors, and so on and so forth. So whatever they were doing on that, the caste system was divided in the society was divided by caste system in those days, And although we don't have it to that an extent in India, especially in the urban areas, but in the rural areas, this can still be seen. And the term scheduled caste is used to refer to people belonging to lower castes. And there are certain castes which are in the schedule of India, and they are known as scheduled castes. Now, caste based hostilities are common even today. Lower caste people live in poor localities and enjoy lesser facilities of healthcare, education, water, electricity, etc. The reason why it is like this is because if we consider a city, the center of the city is always more expensive than the outskirts, and the people who have the money they can afford living in the center, and when they do that, they have the easy access to all the facility which a city can afford or a town can offer. And people who are living in the outskirts are there because they are not economically sound, and often these people of the lower caste they do not benefit from the welfare programs run by the government. In many cases when the census is taken, the names of scheduled caste people are simply not taken, they are not recorded for then for the government it means that those people are not existing at all. What to talk about the facilities the government will provide to them. The word untouchability appears to be 100% Indian term because when you type it on Word, MS Word, it puts a red line under it and it doesn't give any alternatives. This is also an age old vice in India, and certain castes of people were and are not touched by the higher classes. Such lower class people are not allowed to dine with the upper class, they are not allowed to enter into temples, they do not have access to public places. They are sometimes even denied medical attention and education just because they belong to the lower caste. Exceptions are always there. There were some people who were brilliant. For example, Sri B.R. Ambedkar and Jyotiba Phuleji. They were brilliant in their times. They did a lot of work for the upliftment of the unprivileged class. And these are only two examples, but we have so many examples from our history, from the Indian history. Those who understood the evil nature of discrimination and those who felt, no, truly people of India deserve a better life. Now, we also have gender based inequality. We all are either male or female by birth, but every gender has got certain roles given to them by the society, and we need to abide by certain rules given laid down by the society. Sometimes we also do break those rules. There's an unsaid, unwritten rule of dowry. It's not a rule, but it's a system. And because of this, females are taken to be as a burden for the family, and they are treated not equal with the sons of the family. And when they grow up, when they start working, they have to uh, draw lesser salary for the same type of work, and maybe they are doing more work than a man in the same position. The other challenges which a female faces are abortion of the female fetus. This is just before the birth. If one comes to know that it's a daughter, they just abort the child. If they are born, they are neglected. If the girl is feeling sick, she may not get the attention and the care and the food and the medicine that a male child may get. Many girls are abandoned. They are just left by their parents in dustbins or in hospital beds or outside the hospitals, and their parents just vanish. The girls who are born, they have the danger of being killed by their own parents or relatives. This is known as female infanticide. This results in an uneven sex ratio. The ratio between males and females becomes unbalanced. When we talk about the differentiation against differently abled people, we can classify disabilities into two types: mental disability and physical disability. They can also be present in the same person. Mental disability is beyond the scope of our chapter, and there are so many types, and each one have to be treated or taken differently. There are special institutions for that. But when it comes to physical disabilities, a person can be deaf, blind, or he may not be able to speak, or he may have some limbs cut, amputated, or broken, or uh, uh, malformed. They may have paralysis, or in the worst case, they may be bedridden, or they may have motor disabilities. This is the person has got all the organs and all the appendages, but not able to use them because of central nervous system and peripheral nervous system problems. Now, how do we treat such people who are differently abled? We think that somehow these are less capable than us, and they are weaker than us. And just because they are different, we ignore them. We don't even care about their feelings. We don't even feel that they are worth our attention and our efforts. And we count them as utterly useless. And even if they have some useful skills, we tend to ignore them. And we do not feel that they are good enough to receive the same opportunity as us. This is just some points noted here, but you can add more. You perhaps know more than this already if you have encountered such people, or you are the one who's at the receiving end. What the government does for such people. In earlier slides we had said that for the government everybody is important, and disabled people are also important. So for such people, government has got special schools and rehab centers. The government provides special training centers, and they are there for skill development. There are special teachers and coaches and guides. Free education is given to differently abled people. In public places and buildings, you will find a ramp on which people on wheelchairs can uh, go in and out. They are usually given free use on the public transport. They are given concession in traveling. They get reserved seats in metro trains and buses and local trains also. Many places you will find information meant for the public written in a braille script. Braille is a type of script for blind people. Then they are given quota in jobs and many more things the government does, because the government feels that they are also entitled to equal advantages. Now let's see what is the meaning of dignity. This means to receive fair treatment by everybody and to receive the same respect as others get, no matter what our condition is. We are entitled to get the same respect as others get. And we are not to be disgraced due to our differences. Then we need immunity from spiteful actions and insensitiveness of others. This is the meaning of dignity, and it can apply for even a 1 day old baby or to a very old person. Equality in Indian democracy has got certain points which we need to pay attention to. In the sight of the law, all people are equal. Whether he is a very rich man or he is a big minister or a poor common man, everybody uh, receives the same view in the sight of the law. If a crime is committed, that person will be tried sooner or later according to the law of the country. Then the Constitution does not allow discrimination on the grounds of religion, on the grounds of race or caste or sex or disability or place of birth. People come from all walks of life, and that is what makes them separate individuals. And there is no reason why we should be discriminated or we should discriminate somebody else. Then, equal access to public places such as shops, hotels, hospitals, schools. One cannot say that one particular sect of person is not allowed to go there. It's not possible. The constitution doesn't allow it. And people who do this can be punished by law. The constitution forbids untouchability. Although this is still prevalent in the country, it is a punishable offense. Then equal opportunity is made available by the government in the public sector. And there was a law enacted in 1955 which says that the differently abled people should be included in the mainstream of the population. Now let us see what efforts the government has done towards bridging this gap. The government is trying to promote equality by running several welfare schemes. Some schemes we are going to see in the next slide. And the aim of these programs is to provide better opportunities to every citizen, regardless of caste or religion, class, or economic capability. Now, let us see some of them. There was a scheme started in 2001 by Tamil Nadu government, still going on strong, and it is known as the midday meal scheme. The children used to come to the school, and in the lunchtime they used to go home, and in the pretext that they want to have their lunch, and they used to not come back. So this was affecting their education. Then, when this scheme was started by the government of Tamil Nadu, the number of enrollment has increased and the number of students who remained enrolled has increased. And it helped reducing the caste discrimination because some other caste people are cooking the food and the children of all castes sit together and share their food. So this is one step which is a very good step taken by the government and now followed by the state governments of different states also. And this has helped to some extent to remove this discrimination. Sarva Siksha Abhiyan is planned to provide education compulsorily to children, especially girls, and in the age group of 6 to 14 years. As much as possible, education has to be accessible to children. This is the aim of this. Now, for this, government run schools, they provide free books and tuition. They provide extra such as laptop in only some states, bicycles to girls, immunity from punishment. The children need not fear punishment anymore, and providing good quality education. Even in government schools, the recruitment is done based on merit nowadays, as well as facilities in the school. One, if a child goes to the school, he need not worry where he'll go to freshen up or to the washroom. Such facilities are already there. The playgrounds are there. The libraries are there. The computer rooms are there. Reduction of stress because of exam. Earlier, the children used to be stressed out. Now that is being taken care of, and also motivating and counseling the parents. This is also happening. Now, this is one scheme run by the government to provide employment to the rural population. This is known as Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, passed in 2009, and it aims to guarantee right to work. It's an Indian labor law and it's a social security measure. The aim is to provide at least 100 days of employment with wages in a financial year to every household whose adult member is willing to do unskilled manual work. National Rural Health Mission aims to provide accessible and affordable quality healthcare to the rural population, especially the vulnerable groups, and it focuses on reproductive, maternal, and newborn and child health and adolescent services. It aims to decrease infant and maternal mortality rate. Little children, when they are born, many die because of unfavorable conditions, and many new mothers also die. So, one of the aims is to prevent these deaths, and it also prevents or aims to prevent and control diseases, whether they are communicable or non communicable. If we look at the issue of inequality in other democracies, when we in our chapter we have South Africa and United States of America. In South Africa, Nelson Mandela fought against apartheid means the feeling of separateness. Africa is originally a black dominated continent, and there are people from Europe, many people from India also. In the past they have settled down there. So these people, they try to dominate over the blacks, and it is such an injustice because these are the outsiders to South Africa and to several African countries, and they want to dominate. So this was resisted by Nelson Mandela, and he won, and he was given a Nobel Peace Prize, and he also became the first black president of South Africa. We have Martin Luther King Jr. in United States of America. He was a Christian minister and a social worker, and he contributed to the American civil rights movement in the 1960s. He is well known for his famous work, his speech, which is titled "I Have a Dream," in which he spoke of his dream of a United States that is not having segregation and racism. Rosa Parks is also there in your textbook, and she is known as the First Lady of Civil Rights and also the Mother of Freedom Movement. She is known for her Montgomery bus boycott. It so happened that she was traveling in a bus, and in those days, the blacks were supposed to get up and give seat to whites in the bus, and the blacks were supposed to sit at the back portion of the bus, and she refused, and this started a protest. The white man protested, and she protested back, and this sparked the civil rights movement in America. In conclusion, we can say that no nation is completely democratic. In every country, there are sections of society fighting for greater recognition and equality. There is always a call to fight against injustice and inequality. Now, what's to be done? Law alone is not the answer. Law is alone not sufficient to bring about social change unless it is rigorously implemented. First thing. But more important than that is the need for the change in the attitude of the people. We should neither suffer discrimination nor discriminate anybody. If you like this video, give a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Bye. Till the next video.